Max knew something was different that morning. The old man's steps were slower, his breathing heavier. He still smiled, still whispered, "Come on, boy, time for our walk." But something in the way he said it felt final. Max didn't understand words the way humans did, but he understood him. He had spent a lifetime watching, listening, knowing. And today something was different. Still he followed because that's what he had always done. The morning air was crisp, the world quiet except for the rustling of leaves and the distant calls of birds. They walked the same path they had walked every morning for years, a path etched into both of their souls, step by step, side by side. At the park they reached their bench, the place where it all started. The old man sat down, slowly exhaling as he gazed at the pond. Ducks drifted across the water, just as they always had. "You remember, don't you?" His voice was softer now, tired. "This is where I found you, a little ball of fur with nowhere to go. I thought I was rescuing you." Max rested his head on the old man's knee, eyes full of devotion. "But really, you saved me." The old man chuckled, running a hand through Max's fur as if memorizing it. They sat there for a long time, wrapped in a silence that spoke louder than words. Then finally the old man pressed his hands to the bench, trying to stand. "Come on, boy, time to go ho." His voice caught, his breath stilled. And then he fell. Max barked, circling him, nudging his arm. He pawed at his chest, waiting, begging, but the old man didn't move. Max curled up beside him, pressing his body close as if his warmth alone could bring him back, but deep down, in the way that only dogs understand, he knew his best friend was gone. Days turned to weeks, then months. But Max still walked to the park every morning. He still stopped at the bench, he still waited. The seasons changed, golden leaves, winter frost, the first blooms of spring. People noticed the lonely dog who never left. Some brought food, some spoke in hushed voices. But Max never followed anyone home. Because home had been a man with kind eyes and a warm voice, and home was gone. 1 year later, a young woman approached a bench, a bouquet of flowers in her hands. She hesitated when she saw Max's once strong body, now frail. Yet his eyes still searched, still waited. She knelt beside him, brushing her fingers over his head. "Hey, Dad," she whispered, placing flowers beside a framed photograph of the old man. "He never stopped waiting for you." Max lifted his head, his tail gave a faint wag. She stroked his fur, her voice thick. "It's okay, Max, you can go now." Max looked up at the sky as if seeing something beyond the clouds. And for the first time in a long time, he saw him. The old man stood there smiling, waiting, just as he always had. Max let out a soft breath, and then with one last wag of his tail, he closed his eyes. The wind stirred the trees, the sun broke through the clouds. Somewhere beyond what the world could see, a man and his dog walked together again. Some bonds never break, some love never fades.